Hi, and welcome to the Chief Executive Board's international webinar titled More Than Just a Website. My name is Adam Landrum, and I am with Merge. I'm the founder and CEO of Merge. We're a digital strategy agency. We are in our 13th year, and I just feel that it's a privilege to be able to share this information with you. And so I hope that it's helpful and that you're going to find at least one good nugget, as I always say in my webinar, that you can walk away with and implement back at your business. The reason that we're talking about more than just a website is because it's really not about a website. What it's about is the results. And what we hear a lot is that that people want a website, but really when you think about it, a website is a means to an end. It's sort of like if you were starting a new business, you wouldn't say, hey, I want a new business. You would actually say, hey, what do I want this business to do? What do I want it to accomplish? Is this going to be a lifestyle business? Is this going to be, an IPO? Am I going to exit from this thing in 2 years, or am I going to pass this on to my kids? And you would create a business strategy. Well, a website is very similar in that you and that we, for our clients, would create a digital strategy. The whole goal of what we want to do is we want to align the strategy and the goals that we want the website to accomplish with the overall objectives of the business. And so it really starts with strategy, and so it's much more than just a website. And to illustrate, what I want to do is talk about a couple of our clients. The first example was an architectural firm that came to us and they said, hey, we need a website. And this is how the conversation often starts is, hey, we need a website. And as you might guess, if you know Merge, the answer was no, you don't. And of course, their response was something to the effect of, question mark, or I could think of some other initials I'm not going to roll with here, but there was a confused look on their face, like, "Hey, we're coming to you. Don't you guys do websites? We're coming to buy a website." And we said, "No. What you're really coming to buy, or what you're coming to solve, is an awareness problem." Now we didn't jump to this conclusion right away. This came after some conversations and some discovery that we had with this firm. And what we learned is that in the northwest corner of South Carolina, where Greenville is, and where our 10-county region called the Upstate is, this particular firm was very, very well known. And they were so well known is that they had really saturated the market. And so their business strategy was to expand outside of that market to Charlotte and Atlanta, Charleston and Asheville. But nobody knew who they were in those markets, whereas everyone who knew who they were in the upstate of South Carolina. And so what they needed was not a website. What they needed was awareness. And when we quantified this awareness problem, we found out it was significant. In fact, it was a $7.2 million awareness problem. So if they did not do a new website and if they did not generate the necessary awareness, it was going to have a significant impact on them. And when we really dove into their existing website and marketing materials, we also realized, or helped them realize, that they had a brand problem. And that brand problem was they had a 4 or 5-year-old website, which at the time was award-winning, and it was quite a good website for the time. But it unfortunately did not highlight who they were as a firm, because who they were as a firm was they're doing pretty big projects, higher ed and hospitals and significant projects. And so ultimately what we did design, and part of this solution was a website, and it was a website that highlighted the work that they did. And really what it did is that we chose a strategy or to use as few words as possible, and instead show their work in big striking photographs to let the words and their work do the talking. The cliche, a picture's worth 1,000 words, and So that's ultimately what we've done, and they've been a client for us 2, 3 years now, and they have seen significant results and business growth because of that, because of the digital strategy that we aligned with their business goals and their business objectives. Another client I won't spend quite as much time on, but is TNS Brass, and this is a company you may have never heard of, but you have probably used their products 1,000 times and not have known it. They are one of the leading manufacturers of faucets. They're privately owned here in Travelers Rest, South Carolina. But their faucets are in McDonald's and hospitals around the country. And again, like I said, you've probably have used their faucet, but we're unaware of it. They came to merge about 6 or 7 years ago, and they initially thought they were engaging us to help build and redesign their website and maintain their website. But what happened is when we started talking to them, we found out that they had a slightly bigger problem. And through the relationship, we've have sort of touched up their website, but it's still not overly strategic and where it should be. But what is good and what we have been doing is we learned that they had a worldwide sales force, and with this sales force, they would get Excel spreadsheets in once a year, compile that data, and then make their business decisions off that data once a year. And this was, these are significant numbers. These are a significant number of sales reps. And we said, hey, can we help you with that? Because we think there's a better solution. We think there's a better way where you can get real-time information and make better business decisions as we go on. And so we developed something very similar to this for them that really allowed it helped streamline their business operations. And we've been supporting them in this initiative for the past 7 years. We are now just getting to the website, but it's still a successful digital strategy because what we did is we aligned, their really important business goals with the digital goals. The website didn't make sense in terms of priority as much as fixing this problem and or providing this opportunity. So that's an example of where digital strategy isn't always about a website, but ultimately what it is intended to do. So through the years, we've really identified 7 objectives of a website. So again, a lot of people come to us and they say, hey, we need a website, and we usually know, no, that's probably not the case. You're probably trying to fix something, or there's probably a good opportunity, and you think a website is the most cost-efficient way to get there. So those 7 objectives look like this. Either you're trying to build awareness, you're refreshing, or you have a new brand that you want to get out to the market, you want to create leads, you want to generate sales via e-commerce or other means, you want to use your website to provide better customer service, you want to increase your operational effectiveness like TNS Brass did, or you might have a different way of how you do business, and so you need to really educate the market. So a lot of our clients have 1 or 2 of these as their main primary. We've had several clients where it's been 4 or 5 of these, but these are typically the objectives that we're trying to accomplish through a website, which of course requires a strategy to increase the probability that we're going to reach those objectives. So what is a digital strategy? What is that comprised of? And overall, there are 5 pillars to a digital strategy. First is the strategic objective. Again, I'm going to say this seems like common sense, but when we sit down with our prospects and we start with the big questions, the big foundational questions of, hey, what's your vision and what's your mission? A lot of times we get blank stares like, he's asking me that type of question. But we really want to understand what the company is about and where they're going and what they're trying to achieve. And I think that's important, should be important to you too, I hope, when you are designing your website. Then once we understand mission and vision, then we're going to talk about, okay, what's this year look like? What do the next 3 to 5 years look like? Where are you guys going? What are your biggest challenges? And then from there, we can start to understand, okay, from a digital aspect, then what objectives do we need? Are we trying to reach? Is it the awareness? Is it brand? Is it lead generation? What may that be? Those are the strategic objectives. From there, we have creative, which includes brand and design and everything you would think of a website. Same with interactive, which is going to specify, hey, these are the type of functionality we need. This is the e-commerce. This is the content management system, whatever platform that may be. And then we have marketing. Are you going to do search engine optimization? Are we going to do social media, email, automated marketing? There are 1,000 different things that we can do. We'll talk about those. And then lastly, there's results. What are the key performance indicators that we are going to measure to determine if this website and this digital strategy are in fact successful? So what this does is when you go through this process is it gives you a nice clear roadmap. So we always like to say that once you build a website, that's when the real work begins. And you need to have a clear roadmap of what the initiatives and tactics are going to be so that you can go from the beginning all the way to the end to where you're really seeing significant results. So from a strategic objective standpoint, we say, hey, if you don't have a business problem, then don't redesign your website. So again, we're going to go back to sort of the foundational challenges and say, hey, we're going to align our biggest business objectives with our digital objectives. So speaking of biggest, your biggest ROI in terms of web is going to be brand. And just sort of as a testimony to that, Brian Stritt, who's a CEBI member and a current merged client, said, refreshing our brand was the best decision I made in the process to redesign our website, because you do have that decision to make. Is are we going to touch our brand, or are we just going to create a new pretty website? And that's completely fine, especially if your brand is in a great position. But overall, one of your biggest ROIs is going to be re-looking at your brand, probably refreshing that, because at the end of the day, a website is a marketing tool, much like TV or print ads, newspaper or billboards. We just think it's the most cost-effective and efficient marketing tool, and that's why we choose to invest in that and not in those other mediums. So we'll get more into that here. So the second pillar, if you remember, our first was strategy or strategic. The second is creative, and part of that is brand, and which we're going to dive more into. We're going to talk about the brand messaging, but then ultimately the creative talks about the design. Ironically, a lot of people we get this backwards. We start with the design, and then we figure out, oh my gosh, what content, what messaging do we need to put on the website? And then we go, wait, what's our positioning? So we want to start again with the end in mind and start at the beginning. So what is brand? Brand is one of those squishy terms that if I took a poll of everyone on the webinar, we'd all have a different definition probably. But one of the best and clearest definitions of brand I've heard is that it is someone's gut experience, gut call to who you say you are. Yeah, and we think we can control brand. We really can't. Maybe if we had billions of dollars, we can control brand. But ultimately, it's just someone's gut call on who you are. So when you look at brand alignment, you want to look at who your stakeholders are. You want to look at your customers and what they're saying, and then you want to look at your marketing and what your marketing is saying, and that's part of your messaging. When all of those align, we have what's called brand nirvana. And if you can think of some great brands out there, there are few brands who really achieve this. One of those brands is Apple. Apple does an outstanding job. It's almost like a cult, but their leaders and their customers and their messaging all say exactly the same thing, and you get this tremendous amount of synergy because of that brand nirvana. A second example of great brand and brand nirvana would be Harley Davidson. I mean, whose customers tattoos uh, their logo on their bodies? I don't know if CEBI or Merge, I don't think have any of our customers with tattoos on their body, and so that just leads us to that brand nirvana is hard to achieve. I'm not saying that's what the end goal is, but that's certainly what the ideal is. So oftentimes what we see is that, hey, the customers are saying one thing, the stakeholders are saying another. There's some overlap there, but our marketing is pretty much completely different, or at least not saying what the customers are saying or wanting to hear. And so that's what our brand alignment works like or looks like. And so if we put forth a website that doesn't have an aligned brand, then we're really starting at a deficit. So the next thing that we do is look at the competitive landscape and the competitive review. So what we want to do is really, and a lot of times what Merge does and what I'd encourage you to do is identify 4 key um, characteristics or attributes of your marketplace. Plot where your competitors are, and then find the quadrant where nobody is, and that's where you move to. So usually in our examples, it's in the upper right-hand corner, and what you'll find a lot of times in the marketplace is people clump together that, hey, if my competitor is doing this, then I should do that, and we sort of copycat each other, and then at the end of the day, no one differentiates themselves. So you have this opportunity to find that blue ocean and go to that blue ocean and differentiate yourself. So when we do this process, we have the stakeholder vision. We understand what the customer's perceptions are, um, and then we know where we can be truly unique in the marketplace. We combine those 3 things, and we end up getting what is called the big idea. So again, we're talking about a website, or people are coming to Merge, or maybe you're going out and you're saying, hey, I want a website. Well, the first half of this webinar, talking about more than a website, we haven't talked about websites at all. We've talked about strategy, we've talked about strategic objectives of the business, and your goals. We've talked about brand and positioning. And so there is a lot of groundwork that you need to lay before you start going and designing a website and getting that done. So look, this is sort of, I understand this is an intangible idea, and sometimes that can be hard to grasp. So what I want to do is show you another example of how this has recently played out with a client of ours. So the first thing that we did is we went into brand alignment, and we interviewed and surveyed management. And so this is what they said. That they said they were about all of these things. And then so we went to their associates, and we said, hey, what is your company about? They said all these things. And then we went to their customers, and we said, hey, what is this? What's this vendor like for you? They said all these things. Then we found the commonalities behind those attributes. And so everything in those boxes really matches up. If anything is underlined, you had more than one group saying it, but not all 3. And that's where we found our commonality. And then we sort of looked at it like a word cloud to understand what was emphasized from the client perceptions. And there are a lot of ways to do this, but this is our approach and how we've done it. What we then get out of that is what are the ultimate brand pillars? What are those big common foundational attributes that everyone shares and agrees on? And for this client, it was people and being reliable. And then you can see sort of the support below that. And when we sort of say, hey, well, who is a brand mentor? What are some big brands, which just helps sort of maybe personify what our brand is. It's like, hey, Zappos and Publix really have that customer experience thing down. Toyota and Honda, I mean, that's the ultimate reliability. So if we were to think of our company, we would think of ourselves, in terms of these brands. Um, and then from a competitive standpoint, this is actually another architectural firm, just coincidentally, but from a competitive standpoint, we went and we plotted all of the competitors, and from the attributes in the marketplace, we went from aesthetics to functionality, and projects to people. So we're our axis, and we even mapped where the client was, and but based on our brand pillars, we determined that hey, the client really should have been here. So so we had some work to do from a messaging standpoint to make that so. We further looked at the client and where they specialized in, and they specialize in restaurants and in community and higher ed. And if you dug into each of these groups, these are all great firms. Some of them are national firms. Our client is national in one of those disciplines, and we said, hey, there's some pretty stiff competition here. Um, but if we, well, when we further looked into it, what we realized is all those clients, although they have a strong hand in one of those verticals, they also espouse doing all the other verticals. So our client really specialized in just those, and that in and of itself made them very unique, because those are the only three things that they say they do, and that they do really well, and so that provided leverage. We then started to get into mood boards. A mood board, simply what we do is we take pictures that are going to sort of, I guess, epitomize their work and what they're about. And, so here is from their community vertical, here's a firehouse. But we said, hey, you know what, there's more of a story here. It's really about people. It's about the people who work in the firehouse. It's about the details, and so there's really a story to tell. We looked at another project, which was a restaurant, and most architects would put a big picture of the building, and they would usually just put the building up there without any people in it. But again, we wanted to focus on the details. I mean, it's a restaurant, so how about a food shot? People actually working in the restaurant, people enjoying the restaurant, and that's a different approach. If you were to look at all those competitors that we had listed in that competitive review, you would probably see pictures with no people. It's all about the building. Hey, here's our beautiful building. There's the beautiful sky, beautiful setting, but don't put any people in it. Well, that's not what our client is about. Our client is actually about designing space with purpose. That's about. I'm sorry, designing with purpose for the people. So it has to be functional. So we wanted to highlight those people. And then again, another example. This is a student center. Most architects would have an empty building here. We're showing the students enjoying the space, having fun, and telling that story. We further went into, instead of just doing headshots that you typically find on a lot of professional services firm, show sort of real life. Be real, be genuine, be transparent. And this works great for our client. It's not going to work for every architectural firm or professional services firm, but for our client, this is really, again, them being about people and transparent and genuine. This worked for them. This is showing them out even in their projects, really enjoying the work that they designed and has been implemented. So the next step is we help them then develop an internal positioning statement. Like what, if we had it, so if those mood boards from a picture standpoint sort of told the essence of the story, well, if we put this in words, what would the essence of the story be? And so I'm going to read this. It's long. Again, this is meant to be internal, not external. You would definitely wordsmith this and boil it down from an external standpoint. But the client, Architects is a firm whose greatest strength is listening to clients, understanding their needs, and seeing the bigger picture. For every building they design, Does it meet the needs of those that will use the facility day in and day out? How will the building impact the immediate area? And what benefits will it bring to the community? Client team members feel a great responsibility for delivering the best product possible. Anything but the highest quality is not an option, and no detail is too small. The stakes are just too high. They know the decisions they make every day affect real lives, and thousands of people are relying on them. And with reliability comes great responsibility and higher purpose. People, places, and purpose. So I hope you can see that from this position and from this brand, what that did, the client at the end of the engagement said, "What job well done, you guys nailed it. That's awesome." It is, and if you can imagine, not only is this a great message to the marketplace and to the clients to really find those who align with these values and beliefs and who they are about, but it's also an internal rallying cry and really gets everybody internally on the same page. Again, we haven't even mentioned website. We're still talking about brand and strategy and aligning objectives. But this is what that website looks like, and once we launched it, showing the big, beautiful images, the people, and the places and the purpose behind it. Um, and it has been just an outstanding piece for DP3. So hopefully that makes strategy and creative a little bit more tangible for you. The next step is, we're talking about interactive, and so we talk about website development. Now these days we aren't developing for a desktop almost anymore. If anything, we're developing for laptops, we're developing for tablets, we're developing for mobile. That's called responsive design. You only need to design it once, but we and or an agency or a web firm that you engage should be able to design that for any size screen, regardless of the size. Actually, DP3 had their 30th year anniversary, and they bought a new 70-inch touchscreen sharp TV, and it worked beautifully on that too. So that's what responsive design does. So you'll definitely want to know that and make sure that's the case. Of course, you have mobile apps that might get into your customer service, e-commerce, or operational effectiveness. But mobile apps is definitely an ingredient of the interactive pillar. And then, of course, e-commerce for direct sales, and there's a lot of options there. From a marketing standpoint, this is where I said we have 1,000 different options. Social media is certainly one of them, and I think social media works great for big brands. I'm not a believer that social media is a silver bullet and works for everybody, and you have to be doing it. Social media is actually really, really expensive because good social media takes great copy, great content, great design, and it takes a ton of time. And so you have to have a big brand or a lot of customers, in my opinion, a lot of times for social media to pay off. But that's definitely one of the avenues. Search is another. Search is, just so you know, you have organic search and you have pay-per-click search. So if we're just talking about Google only, you have Google AdWords, that's your pay-per-click. It is super powerful because I can target a geographic region. I can say, hey, if I only want to target Chicago and I want to do it for these keywords, I can. If I want to do something different in LA, or if I want to do something different down in Greenville, I can do that. And that's pay per click, and you're going to be paying $4 or $5 per click depending on what your keyword term is. Organic SEO is really what everybody wants, but it's not as easy to come by these days. But for the architectural firm, restaurant design may be a term that they would love to come up for. What you do with that is you build your keywords into your site. You try and build links that it's like a popularity contest that will point to your site, and you write blogs and copy to really try to make your site relevant for that keyword term. Again, That typically takes a specialist to help you out. You'd want to hire an agency that is very well versed in SEO. They can prove it to you. They can show you those results from previous work, and even for both of those, they can be certified in Google AdWords, Google Analytics, and other SEO designations. And then lastly is, well, not last, but another one main is email marketing. It's still probably one of the most effective email or marketing channels is email marketing. It's about four things. It's about frequency, it's about consistency, it's about great design, and lastly, it's about great content. Again, it's like social media. Email marketing, we don't want to spam anyone. We want to get really relevant messages out to people, be valuable, provide value to them, and so that over time they get those impressions and eventually they engage with you. But that is the marketing pillar. I highlighted 3 or 4 mainline marketing options, but there literally are probably thousands of different tactics you can use. Just as a side note, a lot of people say come to us too if number one request is, hey, I need a website. Number two request is, hey, I need more traffic. And again, my question is, hey, if you don't have a great website, then more traffic isn't necessarily going to solve your problem. So I still encourage people to go back to their foundation, address the foundational issues with the website, and then start pouring on more traffic and more initiatives to drive more traffic. And then last, from the pillar standpoint, is reporting. And the web provides such a great opportunity in terms of reporting because you can measure everything or almost everything, and what you measure you can manage. And so what I don't recommend is going to your whoever your web provider may be and saying, hey, give me Google Analytics access so I can look at my stats. I spoke to 700 people in Dallas at a conference, and I asked them to raise their hands. I said, who has logged into their Google Analytics account? And about 5% of the crowd raised their hand, if that. And the reason is Google Analytics is really, in my opinion, for the expert. It is for a business analyst almost to go in and really dissect it. As a business owner, I don't go into my own Google Analytics account. Just because there's overwhelming amount of data. What I do, and what we do for our clients, is we put the key data into a custom dashboard because your objectives are going to be completely different from the next client's objectives. And so what you want to do is get a dashboarding tool and say, hey, pull out my key data and just show me what I need to know. Again, if we know what our business goals are and we know what our web goals are and that those are aligned, then we can determine what our KPIs are, our key performance indicators, and put that in a dashboard form just so we can keep an eye on them, but it doesn't mean we have to micromanage the stats. I will speak to that too, is that we do have some clients who want to change things every other day or every day. You need some time to let this play out to see what happens, and then you can make adjustments. And if you change too many variables at once, you ultimately don't know what affected the change. So, but just some examples of completely different dashboards. They all look different. We're measuring different things, but that is key to your strategy. So, a quick recap on more than just a website. It's results first. A website, and why I'm saying it's more than just a website, is because a website is a means to an end. It is not the end. We don't do a website and then check the box and say, that's done. I hope I don't need to worry about that for 3 or 4 years. You can do websites that way, and people do websites. I'm just saying that's not the most effective way to do a website, and you probably aren't going to get the results that you want. A website should solve a business problem, and its objective is probably going to be one of these 7 items: awareness, brand, lead gen, sales, customer service, operational effectiveness, or education. You obviously want to understand what the objective is, why you're investing in this, and making sure that, again, it's aligning with your business goals. And then lastly, you got to cover the 5 pillars. Spend a lot of time in strategy and spend a lot of time in creative in the brand area. That those two are going to really be your foundational pieces, and then you can get into platform, content management systems, e-commerce, databases, special functionality. Um, you can talk about your social media and SEO and email campaigns, and then lastly, hey, give me that beautiful dashboard that's going to report all this wonderful results that I'm looking for. So, with that said, thank you very much for your time, and I appreciate it. Appreciate you attending today. And if you have any questions, I think we're going to probably stop the recording for the Q&A. But for those of you who are listening to this later, feel free to email Kevin or myself with questions, and we'd be happy to help you out. I hope you enjoyed it. Take care and have a great day.